Greetings, my name is Martin and I am a proud owner of the first 2 store mounts ever added to WoW back in the day. Okay, I'm kinda kidding, I'm actually a little bit ashamed of it, if I'm entirely honest, but I was young and I had the money. This being said, I obviously haven't invested anything besides years of my lifetime and the monthly subscription fee into World of Warcraft ever since, and I do not plan on doing so in the near future. This doesn't mean that I'm entirely against spending money on cosmetics in a video game, it's just something I have decided not to do anymore. Now, 2 days ago a new currency was data mined in the Midnight Alpha files and some consider this to be worrisome. This is the Eye of Kilrock. Let's look into that. I'll grab this wowhead article here which started the entire conversation as a reference and see where it leads us. If you want to look at the article yourself in its entirety and in your own time, I'll make sure to put a link in the video description. Hearthsteel. New premium currency data mined in Midnight. A new currency called Hearthsteel has been data mined on the Midnight Alpha, presumably used to purchase housing items from the in-game shop. And first and foremost, I just want to point out how shitty I find the presentation of this article, as they damn well know that nobody will even read it and jump right on the bandwagon of this is confirmed a premium currency, OMG, Blizzard is cooked, which is obviously not the one and only conclusion to this data mining find. But let's also be real, why else would it exist? We already have plenty of currencies in the game and the icon tag housing market bundle preview details, previewing any decor will add this bundle to your cart, doesn't really spark hope that it's going to be anything but a premium currency. Then we have this little section about every other game of Blizzard already having a premium currency shop, and then the kind of on-the-nose comparison between the data mined Hearthsteel icons and the Diablo premium currency Platinum. So, as all we have is a bit of unconfirmed and unconnected info, let's make up the best and worst way of how this is going to play out and assume that we'll most likely end up somewhere in the middle. Let's start with the worst possible outcome. Previewing any decor will add this bundle to your cart. So we are in the housing item shop already, which offers plenty of item options that cannot be bought for actual money, but a scammy premium currency like we know them from mobile and gacha games. By previewing any item, this little bundle of premium currency will be added to our cart for free, incentivizing us to get some premium currency in order to buy our first item from the shop, which will then be kind of technically for free because we get just as much premium currency back, maybe even more. So for only $9.99 we are technically stealing housing items from Blizzard. At least that's how the mind of an in-game shop addict works. And it is also how breaking down mental barriers works. Everyone in the field of in-app purchases and microtransactions will tell you the hardest sale is always the first one. As soon as you get someone to spend money in the game once, you will have it a lot easier with every sale in the future. Which is why the rarest group of quote-unquote spenders in a game are usually the people who are only buying premium content once or twice. It is either never or often. So in Blizzard's perfect scammer scheme, we now have spent a little bit of money. We received our first beautiful housing item from the housing shop and also received a bit of premium currency for, I would estimate, about 1.7 to 1.8 additional items. So we go ahead and buy one more item and, well, how unfortunate. Now we almost have enough premium currency to get another one, and that carpet looks really neat to go with our freshly bought chairs and curtains, almost as if they were designed to be bought together. So I guess we'll just get a little more of that currency, right? Can't have those 0.8 value of an item currency we already have go to waste. We paid for that. It would be awful. Nobody wants that. And here we are, sitting in our decked out WoW house, while we actually sit in an empty room in front of a 12-year-old laptop that's barely even running WoW at this point, and trying to enjoy it, because unfortunately we got no more money left to afford anything out in the real world. It's all gone to the Hearthsteel shop. So what's the best case then? Well, I'm sorry, but it's not going to be some sort of pure in-game currency like, let's say, Valor Stones. This simply doesn't work with the 2 lines of text we have, as it clearly implies the existence of a bundle that will be added to your cart. Meaning you will have to purchase something to get this. Yes, there has been a card in the trading post for a while now, but logically this just wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. You're just getting more of a currency when buying something with that currency, or another currency that isn't a real world currency. Nah, sorry, that's simply not it. So the best outcome we can expect from this is that it will be handled like trader's tender. While you cannot directly buy it, it can be bought as a bonus for purchasing certain shop items. Right now this would be the case with getting any of the premium versions of the Midnight expansion. Even though I don't think that the number of people getting the premium expansions because of the additional tender is all that high, the fact remains that there is the option of buying trader's tender, even though it isn't its own shop item yet. So I can imagine the Hearthsteel being added to any mount purchase in the future, or certain mount or transmog purchases in the shop in the future. And then a last option I would like to throw in the room is that the real money shop may actually be converted into a premium currency shop in its entirety. I don't know this for sure, but I did read that this is actually what has already happened in Hearthstone. So in this scenario, you will have to buy Hearthsteel in order to buy anything from the shop in the future. Mounts, transmog, housing items, character transfers, name changes, everything that you can buy now for your local currency, you will in the future have to buy with Hearthstone. Now on the first look, this may sound counterintuitive, because when it comes to designing shops, the first thing anyone will always tell you is remove every boundary between seeing an item and buying it. Adding a currency conversion at the very beginning of using your shop at all is the exact opposite of that on the first look. But on the long term it isn't. Because while you're creating this little bit of extra friction for the very first purchase, you'll actually remove it for any future purchase, because you'll already have budget in your account, especially if you get a little promotional extra for your first purchase, right? Right. Having a balance on your account already will also always give you that little bit of a feeling that you're getting a discount, even though you paid for that in full. It's only past you who did that. And in addition to that, you can completely disconnect the real world value of an item by displaying it in another currency with a hard to convert currency value. Let's say 1,689 Hearthsteel costs $3.75 in the store, while 6,212 Hearthsteel cost only $4.17. And I can already hear you yelling in the comments. But the EU, they're about to make this kind of scammy behavior illegal. Yeah, kinda. But first of all, when the EU decides to do anything, this doesn't mean that all EU member states will immediately implement this. As an example, in 2021 it was decided that the EU will no longer change the clocks from summer to winter time and the other way around. But this decision was also tied to all countries agreeing on how to exactly implement this. Some countries want to stick to summertime forever, some want to stick to wintertime forever, Now it's almost 2026 and we are still changing our clocks twice a year. I just did it last week. Also, the EU is not going to make microtransactions or currency exchanges illegal. They are about to make it illegal to market gambling to children, and they want companies to implement a somewhat feature that allows you to see the actual value of an item you buy in a shop in your local currency. Meaning if you buy a cushion in the housing store for 742 Hearthsteel, Blizzard will have to tell you that this is approximately 90 euros if you reside within the EU. And how hard do you think it is to add that little info badge to the EU shop while leaving it out for everywhere else? Exactly. No challenge at all, and definitely still worth doing. So these new EU regulations are, as always, weak and probably years away from being fully implemented in any way in the first place. And while the EU is obviously a significant market for Blizzard, so are America and Asia, where they're still allowed to scam people with this bullshit currency conversion business practice. Now, where does this leave us on the matter of Hearthsteel? Well, absolutely nowhere, of course, as long as there isn't an official statement or announcement by Blizzard. While I kind of expect it to be handled somewhat like Trader's Tender, but disconnected from the trading post, which is a reasonable decision to make from a game design perspective, I also have to say that my very first thought when housing was announced was, boy, this is going to be their new cash cow. This will be literally The Sims in WoW. 90% of this will be the in-game item store. They came out pretty much immediately and said that this will not be the case, that there will be obviously purchasable items, but not really a significant part of something, I guess. And now we wait. But all speculations aside, I do believe that the money for housing has to come from somewhere. Implementing this into the game definitely takes a ton of resources, and the big question remains whether or not housing will make that people return to WoW or keep on playing WoW to justify that level of investment from a standpoint of subscriptions alone. From my point of view, as someone who spends most of his time in dungeons and raids and would love to see some more resources put into good world and story content, if Blizzard adds this whole second game to the game with housing, and the players currently playing the game as it is pay for that second game, and there aren't any additional gamers coming in, resources will be shifted from the part of the game I care about to a part of the game I don't care about at all. So for me personally, seeing housing being milked, if it is necessary to do it or not, it will hopefully ensure that the resources that housing requires aren't taking away from the content I care about. And if those resources come straight from the people who want housing in the game, that's perfectly fine for me. Now that's obviously based entirely on my personal bias, and every housing enjoyer who doesn't raid would probably say the same if I had to buy my weekly raid ID for $10. And please don't tell Blizzard that this could be an option, I beg you. But all jokes aside, here is how I actually see it. WoW has been running on a subscription model for about 5 years before the first store mount was added. Then came transmog. Then came the WoW token. Now comes housing with a bit of a question mark. Meanwhile, the subscription cost has never changed over the 20 years of WoW running. Not even with the extreme inflation of the past 3 or 4 years. And no, I don't think that this is entirely justified to give us the 400th recolor for in-game achievements, while entirely new and unique models are available in the real cash shop. But the fact of the matter is that money to run and develop the game has to come from somewhere. And if I can choose between paying $25 or $30 every month for my WoW sub, or paying as much as I always paid, while in the meantime someone else can enjoy some unique transmog that they buy for real money, I'm honestly kind of fine with that for the most part. And no, I obviously do not know if that math checks out. I would assume that it is way cheaper to run servers for an online game nowadays than it was back in 2005. So maybe all the extra shop item money really just goes straight into the diamond-laced pockets of Blizzard CEOs and investors. I'm sure that is partially true at least. But to me, at the end of the day, there's really just two things that matter. First of all is that real-world money stays away from how the game is played as much as possible. And selling cosmetic items for a private area in the game is the best way to do that in the game yet. I prefer it over mounts, I prefer it over transmogs, and obviously I prefer it over any stuff that actually interferes with how the game is played, like the WoW token or the Longboy. And most of all, running WoW is a business, and doing that properly requires money, which has to come from somewhere. Right now, I am happier than ever playing World of Warcraft. I started playing again in December of 2023, and I have played ever since. I have never had a phase of playing the game that long without taking a break for a month or 5 back in BC, Wrath, or Canada, because I was either burning out from bullshit farming or waiting for almost a year for new content. And no, Halcyon wasn't content. I'm sorry. So yes, in many ways vanilla WoW was better than WoW is today, but in my opinion that has way less to do with the work of Blizzard and way more with how the community has developed as a community. And for me personally, especially with the option of still hopping on classic servers, with event servers like Remix and even Plunderstorm added, WoW today is better and more fun than it ever was. And many of the things coming our way in Midnight and potentially after that are going to make the game even better. And if that requires additional funds for additional resources, I understand that. And I also understand that it is sometimes hard to find a balance between making real money purchases worthwhile for players without sacrificing gameplay for it. But up to this point, as I'd say, middle-class WoW player who does a bit of world content, rates heroic, and enjoys M+ up to 3k rating with rare dabbles into PvP and crafting, not even the WoW token had a noticeable negative impact on how I experience the game as someone who pays nothing but his monthly subscription. Now, what do you think? Will the Hearthsteel finally end WoW? Or is this maybe a way to even improve how real money purchases are handled in the game? Leave a comment below, please be nice to each other, even if you may not share an opinion. And if you're interested in more videos in which I ramble way too long about certain WoW topics, or how I look at different tier set designs as a 3D artist myself, feel free to check out the rest of my channel. Maybe even subscribe. I try to do at least 1, sometimes even 2 videos a week. Maybe leave a like on this video if you find it interesting or useful. This is pretty much a brand new channel and any kind of interaction helps me tremendously. Thank you. Bye.